Mr. Chairman, would you like me to sort of frame up the issue and then we can go from there?
I would be grateful for that. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right. So.
Just a point of order. Don't we have to come out of executive session?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I move we come out of executive session.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, so I know that as the board is aware, and I believe Mr. Wood's aware as, because I raised this issue when I spoke to you this afternoon, that there is a procedural issue that there is of some concern that we want to make sure that the parties have an opportunity to address before the board takes any action on it. And so there was a little oversight with posting the agenda for this meeting, and it didn't get posted, unfortunately, until this morning. And so under FOA or the right to know law, agendas are supposed to be posted, and the standard and the statute is with reasonable notice. And, you know, the day of isn't under law considered to necessarily be reasonable notice. Now, because of that, you know, the board needs to determine whether or not they want to, or not, if it's not necessarily a question of wanting to, but if they should, from a legal perspective, postpone the hearing on the substance of this case. But before they do that, I think it's appropriate to hear from the parties, their feelings and their submissions on that particular point. Does he have to come to the mic?
You take a roll call. I think, Rich, just as a point of order, we should take a roll call. I don't know that we've done that as yet.
No, we haven't.
We haven't. Okay.
My name's Rich Ganong.
Sean Donnelly.
Amy McNally.
Jens Bergen.
And I'm not a member of the board, I'm just the town attorney to provide advice.
And our town manager, Keith Profeta, will just be taking minutes.
I'm Randy Wood, and we're from Six Ranger at Cape Arundel Properties. This is my wife Donna, and thank you for hearing this tonight. As far as the, we don't have any problem with it not being advertised ahead of time. That's, we came to just present our case to the board, and then they can consider it. I'm perfectly fine with doing that today. Is any question? Is that the question you were asking? Yeah.
Would you like to be heard on that, Ms. Newcomb?
I'd just like to get this done with. It's kind of stretched out a long time, so I'm fine with it.
All right, well, there seems to be some commonality and feelings about that. I think the board should discuss the issue openly to give the applicant and Ms. Newcomb the opportunity of the benefit of our feelings about it.
I don't have a problem with going on, but I can think of one person in town who will have a problem.
At least one.
At least one.
So it would, I think, it may be that it's not just a matter of concern to the parties that are here tonight, the three of you, but potentially others who may be similarly situated within your condominium development.
I can address that a little bit. The cutoff for this was, I think, February 15th. And I know of one other person that was going to actually file. There's only one person. She's aware that we're meeting tonight.
They might get more.
But we don't know of any others, but maybe you do. But we have, there's only one other person that raised an issue. And I think there's only about a dozen people overall that were concerned about it in the first place.
That many?
From, well, there was, people did go to other meetings. People went to the select board meeting and addressed the issue at that, in the fall, when the development was still open. There was numerous people went to your meetings at the select board meetings. It was not a appeals board. It voice until there's.
Hmm.
I would say I share some concerns about the public notice specifically. And only because, in part because today was a holiday. We're a brand new board. It'd be one thing if we met every third Monday of the month and everyone knew it and it was on the website and just didn't get posted one time. But I think we're a newly formed board. There might be public curiosity that we're unaware of. If it's insufficient under the law, I have reservations about moving forward with a substantive hearing.
The board is very motivated to do things rightly here, procedurally as well as substantively. And we understand that you've been waiting for a while to be heard. We understand that. And that's not lost on us. But we're trying to get this ship off the dock, and because it hasn't sailed for a while with this board and this town, and we'd like to do it the right way. So any other comment from,
As I'm very new to these proceedings, I would be conservative and err on the side of caution and postpone.
I can tell you, by the abatement deadline, I got maybe 8 other requests, most of which were just one-liners or not even, basically, if I don't reply, it's deemed denied after 60 days, so I just ignored them.
these were requests or requests for information, or these were up?
Application for
Applications.
appeal of for an abatement. Application for abatement.
Would you clarify, was it for abatement, or was it for an appeal of abatement? Those 8.
Just for abatement.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
There's one who, I think she may still be within the deadline to make an appeal.
And again, that's the first line. That's the only one but there may be others that but I think Beth can probably address that better than I can.
Okay. Well, I think that we could take the opportunity to have some kind of discussion or exchange, not necessarily on substantive basis this evening, but more on a procedural basis that would be of some assistance to the board members in working together on this matter, and also to provide the parties to the matter, both parties to the matter, with some perhaps I don't want to use the word guidance, but at least a reminder of some of the standards that we're going to need to be paying attention to as we consider your application, Mr. Wood, Mr. and Mrs. Wood. But I think before we did that, I think it would be important to at least make a determination of what we're going to do with this notice issue.
I was going to ask the town attorney what her idea of a fair amount of time would be. I mean, do we say 2 weeks to get a public notice out, or do we say a month to get a public notice? What is your opinion about what would be
Yeah,
appropriate?
maybe might I make a suggestion, and we're just sort of, when I say making this up as we go along, certainly not the law, but just sort of our process here. And in light of the procedural issue we're faced with, here's what I would suggest. Perhaps we make a motion to continue before we get into the discussion of the procedural issues. And maybe at the end, we can revisit, because what I discuss about procedure may inform how long the parties might think is important to have until the next meeting. So maybe you make a motion, if you are so inclined. I think I heard that there's an inclination to make a motion to postpone consideration of the pending matter. And you can vote on that, and then at the end, we can perhaps look at our respective calendars, hear from the parties after we talk about the the procedural issues, the standard of review, and then we can have a better sense of when we should be scheduling for. That makes sense.
Okay, so for right now, then, we're just going to postpone it to the end of this meeting.
I think you want
And then we
to,
will,
I think you want to make a motion to postpone the hearing of this matter. We don't have to do a date certain just yet. We
Oh,
can take that
okay.
up at the end of the
i-
meeting.
if we don't have to do a day certain, then right now I'd make a motion that we postpone the hearing until we've had a chance to review the procedures.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote. Okay. Record will reflect 4-0. Okay, that done then. Would you mind
I'd be happy
giving
to.
the parties on the board some?
Yeah.
That,
Absolutely. And so, as we are aware, this is, and I think Keith had said earlier today that in your tenure as town manager since when, 2015? The Board of Assessment Review has never met. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity, notwithstanding this appeal before us, just to have a very general discussion about what the governing procedures are, the burden of proof, the standard of review, all of these things, and the legal burden. And these are issues that I think would be helpful to you as a party, to anybody who may be listening going forward, and this board, because we're, all essentially a bit new to this. And so with that said, I'm just going to go through these legal concepts that have, they're generally applicable. We're not talking about the facts of your particular case. These are just generally governing legal principles. Okay. So just to talk about where are these coming from? Where are all these rules and regulations coming from? They come from a few different places. One is the town charter, which appoints this board and talks about its duties. The charter itself points to state statute, and they're also the parties may be aware of this, but just in case you aren't, that this board has its own rules of procedure. And those are something that everyone should take a look at prior, just to make sure that everyone understands what the process is. And I'm not sure if they're on the website. If they're not, I think you can reach out to Keith and he'll provide those to you. So that's kind of where the source of the authority for this board is and what the governing process is that it must follow. And so I think the really important thing for us to start out with is the burden of proof. Who bears the burden of the proof? Is it the assessor or is it the party who is appealing the assessment? And it's very clear that the burden is on the person who is bringing the appeal. So what that means is that, this is a old fashioned saying, is he who alleges must prove, right? So anybody who is asking the board to change essentially what decision is under appeal, they must establish why. And it's their burden of establishing that. And, parties may have heard of the standard of proof. Reasonable doubt, it's not reasonable doubt. Preponderance of evidence, that's the usual standard in civil matters. But here, it's important to understand that in the specific context of assessment appeals, under statute and under the case law interpreting it, it's very clear that it's a pretty tough burden. And what that burden is that the party who is appealing has to show that the assessor made a manifest error in assessment. And that's a pretty heavy burden. And how do you do that? So in order to prove that the assessor has made a manifest error, there are three ways of doing that, three categories. One, they have to show that the property was substantially overvalued. That's the first way of proving manifest error, or that the assessment was manifestly wrong. So substantially overvalued, and I'll go back and revisit I'll sort of flesh that out a little bit more. The second is to show that the valuation reflects unjust discrimination in assessing. And the third is to show that the assessment was either fraudulent, dishonest, or illegal. And that's a very rare basis of appeal. It doesn't happen very often, and it's a pretty hard one to establish. And when we say illegal, what's an illegal assessment? That's not it's overvalued. That's not that it's inequitable. That's that you assessed somebody who doesn't own the property, or you assessed for property that's located in Kennebunk. So that's a pretty rare thing. So I would say 99.9% of the appeals that are going to come before you are dealing with overvaluation, meaning you just assessed it too high, or that it's unjust and indiscriminatory. And let me kind of flesh those out a little bit. So the overvaluation cases, those are, as I said, that that's just too high. The valuation is just too high. And so in order, again, as I said, to meet that burden, that you must show, not you, but the applicant must show manifest error. And what's really important there is that there's an evidentiary burden. It's not that you can just poke holes at the methodology or say, ooh, that comparable isn't right. You have to show, the applicant has to come forward with credible affirmative evidence of just value, meaning what is the and when I say just value, that's the constitutional term. Under case law, just value means market value. Okay. And so in order to prove a manifest error in assessment, for it to be overvalued, the appealing party must come forward and not just say, assessor, you didn't do it right. You did that wrong. You have to bring forth evidence to show what the actual market value is of that property and why it's overvalued. So that's kind of the critical piece when the appeal is based on overvaluation. Second one that I was talking about is this unjust discrimination. And that's based on this constitutional concept. And I think most people are aware of this, is this notion of equity in assessing. We hear that, equity in assessing. Well, what does that actually mean? What that means is, and I'm going back to the Constitution, it talks about how assessments have to be, so assessors have to apportion and assess property equally according to just value. So we've talked about just value, that's market value. And this concept is and I'm trying to reduce complicated concepts down to their essence, but the bottom line is that similarly situated properties should be assessed similarly. And I know that sounds simple, but that really is what equity in assessing is all about. So if an appellant is going to argue that the assessment is manifestly wrong, we're back to that, because it's discriminatory or inequitable, they have to show that the comparables are not in fact comparable, meaning that if the assessor is saying, hey, I have assessed similarly situated properties similarly and equitably, the appellant has to say, no, these are not similarly situated, and this is why. Okay. I will tell you in the few cases, and again, as we said, that burden is a pretty steep uphill climb because of the presumption of validity. As I said, the courts will presume, and this board must presume that an assessment is valid unless manifest error is shown. And the few cases that in Maine where they have found discrimination in assessing is because they'll have two neighborhoods where they are similarly situated and they were assessed according to either a different methodology or, so they weren't treated similarly. Again.
Can you say that again?
Sure. The unjust discrimination cases is basically when they're found, and I can cite you the cases too. It's the cases at issue here are the city of Biddeford v. Adams. And that's the big one, where basically they found that the assessors unjustly discriminating by reducing the value of properties in one neighborhood, but not in others. And those properties were similarly situated. So it's all about similarly situated properties being assessed similarly. Okay. So that's really the meat and potatoes of overvaluation appeals, discrimination appeals. I don't think it's really necessary to get into the illegality, fraud, and because that's such an incredibly small portion of the appeals that you will be presented with. Another thing that everybody, assessor and appealing parties should be aware of, there's this concept of a statutory defensive assessment. And under statute, there's this language where it says it's a sufficient defense of an assessment that is accurate within reasonable limits of practicality, except, and I think this except part is the most important piece, is that when a proven deviation of 10% or more from relevant assessment ratios. So the state Maine Revenue Services puts out these assessment ratios and, you know,
The tax ratios, is what
or assessment.
tax ratios, same thing.
Maine Revenue puts them out. And so those are something that an assessor can rely on and say, well, look, I'm within 10% of those. And again, there is a lot of confusion about what is the actual relevant assessment ratio, because, you know, under Maine Revenue, there's different categories of kinds of properties. And so what is the relevant assessment ratio is important, right? And that's, again, I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but I just want you folks to keep that in mind, that that is a statutory defense of assessment. I think the next question, of course, is, well, okay, what if we do find that there is a manifest error? What is our role as a board? What do we do? Well, in that case, actually, the statute and case law provides broad discretion by this board to make such reasonable abatements that you believe, not that you want to give, but are based on the evidence that you have before you. So you can't just willy-nilly say, that's my best friend, I want to give him a great abatement. Not that you would ever do that, of course. But whatever abatement you would like to, if you decide there has been manifest error, you do have discretion about granting that abatement. Doesn't have to go to court. You don't have to remand it back to the assessor, but whatever abatement you do arrive at must be based on the evidence before you. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know that's a lot to digest, but it's important to understand that that's kind of the parameters in which this board is operating. That is what the respective burden of proof, the defenses, and the various grounds for challenging assessments, and the evidentiary basis on which this board can grant those, if it believes that there's record evidence to support an abatement.
To the parties, I'm more directing my question toward Mr. and Mrs. Wood. But do you have a copy of the rules and regulation?
No. Could you give me that?
I think that would be available from a
Yeah, I don't have an extra copy. Mine's all marked up, but I believe I
mine is
asked.
annotated too, so I'd offer mine to you, but that's something that I think would be helpful for you to have. Okay.
Would you mail it out to me?
Would you? And so,
Thank you.
and when you review that, I think you'll find it helpful. And you'll find my colleagues' remarks very helpful, because there'll be a context for them. Okay,
What?
there will be a context for Attorney Ration's remarks to you. And I think that focusing on sections 4A and 4D. 4A.
What are they
and
what are they
4D.
about?
That's the section that deals with appeals, which is
Okay.
where you are now. And the issue of the burden of proof and where you got to focus.
I think I'm on top of that already.
All right. Does that perhaps suggest then that we discuss timing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you fellow board members have any thoughts about that you'd like to share?
But normally I would say the next regularly scheduled meeting, but we don't have one.
Once a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the regular schedule, wouldn't it? I would look at it and say 2 weeks, because that's simply the standard that I'm used to working from.
Yeah, that's a planning board standard, I think.
It
right?
is.
Yeah, well, I think a longer period of time would be
But that's fine. We could do a month,
Ultimately,
we could do,
I think ultimately it's gonna be more productive for both the parties.
I'm ready to go right now. I think. That's where you're ready to go.
Yeah, sounds like the board has not, I mean, I didn't, when I was first dealing with you, we didn't even have a board, so
right.
I didn't know how to.
To me, I think the issue is getting the public notice out there so that we can inform everybody.
Yeah.
We're having a meeting
I mean, it makes sense, they're up to
and
two
like I said,
hundred and seventy. Well,
well, the one
we're not-
person that I
we're
can
all-
think
we're
of does not live
cleared
out
out
there.
yet.
They live someplace else in town.
Mhm.
And I think 2 weeks certainly is sufficient to absolutely to satisfy FOA.
For purposes of notice, yes.
Yeah.
I would suggest that 30 days would be a more sensible time period to allow the parties to absorb these rules, consider them, and consider whether any supplementation of their materials would be called for or prudent.
Yeah, and considering this is the first time we've looked at it, I don't think 30 days is a bad idea. You know, like I said, I'm just stuck on the planning board schedule. So I'll make a motion that we get a 30-day extension.
I'll just say that I'm unavailable on the 13th, which I think is 4 weeks from today.
The applicants have any wish to be heard beyond, you'd like to have this as soon as possible?
Oh, yeah, we were ready to go today. Yeah, we're still ready to go. Whenever you, if you want to do 30 days, that's agreeable.
30 days is agreeable to you?
That's fine. Whatever you, we're open to what you want to do. That's fine. We're ready to go today.
Well, I entertain a motion.
30 days from today is what day?
It's May 15th.
I
oh,
may
that
not
would be-
be available
yes.
that day.
No, not May 15th.
I wouldn't,
When we do these on Mondays, is that how it's gonna be set up? Keith?
We could go every other Monday. The board meets on the first and third Mondays of each month, so we chose the second, fourth Mondays. I think we'd be in good shape.
Excuse me, Sean, did you say that didn't work for you?
That's the 13th, the second Monday doesn't work for me. I'll be out of town.
You got one more, has to be a Monday.
It
Is,
doesn't have to be a Monday.
do they meet the 29th, the board?
They're
that's-
gonna meet the 22nd this month. So, not quite sure what the 29th for us.
The 29th is the week following, that's the Monday. But, you know,
I could do 22. I'm not here the 29th.
okay. Next week after that.
22nd,
Oh,
Second, Sean.
22nd
May.
of May.
That's a Wednesday. So Wednesday.
Wednesdays are available.
it's 7. Like,
22nd
Yep.
at 7. Odds all the way around.
I have a meeting that night. I have a meeting every Wednesday night, other than the planning board.
You can't meet the 22nd.
No,
Oh,
I'm the leader of the other meeting that occurs on Wednesday nights.
so Keith, what days of the week is this board scheduled to convene when it convenes?
This board convenes on an as-needed basis, so we can pick and choose the dates that are more appropriate. At that point, we want to link into a particular day that's better for you folks as a group to do that as well.
How about the 20th?
Works for me.
That's a Monday night.
Yeah.
7 o'clock. That work for you, right?
I think so. Yeah, let me just confirm. I have this calendar.
Is that a problem with the select?
The select board meets on the first and third, so I don't know where the third. which-
Yeah, that would be.
That is the third.
That's the
third.
third.
That's the third, they meet. They meet on the third. They meet the first and third, so the second and fourth Mondays will be available. Tuesdays, the planning board meets the
First and third.
first and third.
What about the
Then you
20?
go to the second and fourth on Tuesdays. Thursdays are wide open.
Oh, Thursdays, okay.
Thursdays, any day on Thursdays.
But Amy, those Thursdays.
Those are
aren't good
ZBA
for
days
you.
typically.
Those are tough for you, maybe, Thursdays?
Yes, we have a ZBA, I advise a ZBA.
Yeah.
so.
Will either the 14th or the 21st work?
The 14th is out,
Those are Tuesdays.
the 21st I could do.
I
see.
see the 21st.
It's this, is it the second Tuesday?
The 14th is.
Yeah, if it's the second Tuesday, then yes, that's fine, because the planning board meets on the other 2 weeks.
Not 14th?
No.
Okay. All right.
What about, oh, Thursdays? Do you, how often does the ZBA meet? Is it every 2 weeks?
It's every two and I'm gone the 16th, so I'm out the 9th, 16th and 23rd.
All right.
Or no, I'm sorry, it would just, I could do the 23rd.
I think I can do.
On to the 23rd.
Yep, I can do the 23rd
You're talking the 23rd of May.
of May.
Mr. Wood, how's that for you, 23rd of May?
Yeah, that looks okay.
Okay.
What day of the week is that?
Okay.
Not good for you?
I don't know.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Those 2 weeks don't look like they're difficult. How about the week of the 6th?
Did we explore? I know it's earlier than 30 days, but what about Wednesday, May 1st? Or even Tuesday, the 30th?
Tuesday, the 30th.
April, that's earlier.
April works. Over 2 weeks.
I can do the 30th.
30th,
Of April?
April.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, I can do the 30th of April.
30th?
Yeah.
Okay,
Does it work for you?
Not that well. How about the 25th of April? Would that work for you guys? It's a little earlier, but we're gonna be in the area that day. 25th. You're going to, you're talking about the 30th. Yeah, well, she said it has to be reasonable.
I wouldn't be able to do the 25th.
That's a ZBA.
ZBA day.
That's a makeup meeting from the storm.
So the 30th and the 1st, April 30th and the 1st of May, I can do, but I think you said that wasn't okay for you, Mr. Wood.
Would you rather do the first of May? Might not be too bad.
1st of May?
Wednesday?
That was-
How's the room?
Wednesday,
Yeah.
the first?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can make that work.
I'll make somebody else take my place on that Wednesday night, so we can do the first.
Okay.
So we're gonna go May first?
5,
Yep.
1 at 7.
Does that not work for you, Rich? Excuse me. Did that not work for you, Rich?
I'll have somebody take over my other meeting.
Oh, okay, all right. What day of the week is it?
7 PM.
So
If I don't,
Does
we're
that-
gonna be
does that
talking
require a
next year
motion?
before we meet.
What's that again?
If I don't, we'll be talking next year before we get to meet again.
okay,
you may want to just, you may want to just say, motion to continue this appeal until the evening of May 1st.
perhaps, in clarifying our earlier motion that carried 4-1 to continue this proceeding tonight, we have developed a date and time that works all the way around for both parties and
Yes.
for all members of the board and its council of May 1st
Yep.
At 7 PM.
So
Okay, all right, very good.
Do you need it in a formal motion?
I think you moved it, Rick.
Okay, then I'm going to amend my original motion to make us have our meeting on May 1st at 7 PM.
Okay, we have a second, all approved, yes, okay, that carries. Okay. I, do any among my, colleagues on the board have any other issues they want to raise, or are we prepared to
You mean other than a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn?
If,
Inviting
just
that.
one request before we adjourn, would you please, put in writing on this piece of paper that you, postpone the meeting until May 1st and sign it for me? My records.
All right with that?
You don't have to. I mean, it's gonna be posted.
Yeah, it's
It's gonna
gonna,
be part of the minutes, but
Well, I'm here right now. I think. Well, I get here.
there's no reason why you shouldn't.
No?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to, but there's no. reason
Okay.
why you wouldn't. And
All
so
right.
here,
Oh.
Keith had a copy of this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sometimes you recognize this, take a picture and send it to me. So it's-
yeah, that's fine.
I just-
You like records. I like record keeping.
Conversation.
Yeah. To that point, because every piece of paper that comes through this is part of the administrative record, I'm just gonna take a picture of it for record. There you go.
Thank you. And thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Keith, I'm just gonna email this, to you so you can throw it in the record.
Was there a motion to adjourn?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
Did we second it? Was it seconded?
Good second.
Okay, who seconded it?
Amy
I
did.
did.
Amy? Okay, thank you.
Thank you again. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.